Wait, you're live.
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm going to be telling you about this disease that I have. It's aHUS. Just going to wait and see if anybody's wanting to tune in.
Yeah, there's nobody listening right now, so I'm going to kind of get a position.
They can hear you too.
They can?
Yeah, and this gets saved, remember?
Oh, yeah.
You mean you're not all just jumping at the chance at 6 o'clock exactly?
Okay, and we can invite people too.
Oh, okay.
If you want to do that.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, there's 2 people listening right now. 3?
Okay. So we'll just wait another minute or so and then I'll get started with this story. Do you recognize any names?
We have Elaine, Erin, Marsha, and Ashley listening.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
We have 6 people now.
Okay. Well, I'll just start. So thanks for tuning in. I've obviously never done anything like this before. My daughter Michaela is helping me record this, and she's going to share a little bit at the end also. But I'm the type that has to have my words prepared, so you'll see me looking down because I have my words here. But September 24th is aHUS Awareness Day, and aHUS stands for Atypical Hemolytic Uremic Syndrome, and it's the disease that I have. The aHUS Alliance has asked people with aHUS or their caregivers to share about the disease this way through Facebook Live. And the disease is so rare that it's really important to get the awareness out so people can learn about it. So before I forget, if you have any questions as I go along, feel free to write them in if you want to. And then Michaela, my daughter, and I are going to work on answering those hopefully at the end if I can figure that out. So recently, a person with greater understanding of the disease than I have shared this fairly simple way of understanding the disease. The complement system of the immune system fights off E. coli and meningitis. But with aHUS, the system has been mistakenly activated and it won't turn off. Since this system had no bacteria to fight off, in my body it was damaging the blood cells, or blood vessels, which in turn were damaging the red blood cells. The blood cells then clog the smallest arteries, causing kidney failure, strokes, and other horrible things. For me, the disease caused significant kidney damage and high blood pressure. But the biweekly infusion I have been receiving for about 2 years now works like a dimmer switch on a broken lamp. It won't turn it off completely, but it does turn it way down. So my story with aHUS in a nutshell goes like this. I first became ill in June of 2001. I was 25 years old. It literally came on overnight. I was teaching school full-time. I was attending a part-time master's program and going to the gym almost every day. The symptoms I began experiencing very suddenly were very extreme flu-like symptoms. I was mentally unclear, more than usual anyway, and I could just tell that my kidneys were shutting down. Something deep inside told me my kidneys were not well. I drove myself to the emergency room, and there I discovered my blood pressure was extremely high. I was jaundiced in color, and my blood test revealed that my creatinine and BUN, which are kidney results, were very high. My platelet count was low, and my LDH was high. These tests showed my kidneys were suffering and hemolysis, or the breaking down of my red blood cells, was occurring. When I became ill 16 years ago, there was very little in the way of treatment. The doctors treating me had never had a patient with this disease. They actually weren't quite sure if it was aHUS or another disease called TTP. So I began treatment that they hoped would eventually put it into remission. And that treatment was called plasmapheresis. And that's like a blood transfusion where I would go to usually a dialysis center and be hooked up to a machine for a couple of hours where I would receive new plasma and my red blood cells would get returned to me. I also had very high doses of prednisone as treatment. I had some chemotherapies, but there was no success with that. I also required some dialysis along the way, but was able to quit that. My blood pressure remained a major concern, and this took years to really stabilize. I continued on with plasmapheresis for years. The plan had been for maybe a month, but it continued on for years. Whenever I stopped, I would have a relapse. So eventually, after a couple years, the doctor suggested a splenectomy, which had helped some people with a similar disease to get off of the plasmapheresis. So I had the splenectomy, and it seemed like it might have stabilized the disease a little bit. It's hard to say for certain if it did. My kidney function did seem to stabilize. It wasn't good, but it was stable and not getting worse. But for years, I still had strange vascular type problems occur that makes it seem like the disease was still happening. Finally, around 2013, my kidneys began to show some decline, and it looked like it was time to prepare for a transplant. So I tested for the transplant and found a living donor, and surgery was scheduled. During that time, I was diagnosed with melanoma, skin cancer though, for the second time. But this time it was found to be invasive, meaning I would need to postpone the transplant for 2 years. This was a shocking time for all of us. We had planned on this transplant, and that got completely changed. But in the meantime, through a Facebook page for people with this disease of aHUS, I began to hear about a newer medication people with the disease were receiving through infusion. This medication was helping to slow down the disease process, and people were even regaining some kidney function. I have now been receiving that medication through infusion for 2 years, and I'm not in need of a transplant or dialysis, and this is a huge praise. I do still deal with effects of aHUS every day. I have to take several blood pressure medications every day. I deal with fatigue of having compromised kidneys, as well as a chronic disease. I also have the infusion every 2 weeks. The first year of my disease, way back in 2001, the first year, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I had several possibly well-meaning people say some devastating things to me. I think people don't know what to say sometimes, but sometimes it's better just to be quiet and listen. So one thing that was said to me that was very devastating was a volunteer in a hospital that first year came to visit me, and she was nice enough, but eventually the conversation turned to teaching, and she told me that she felt like I would never teach again. This was devastating because teaching had always been my dream. When I was 14 years old, I began dreaming of being a teacher. And when I became ill, I was only in my second year of fulfilling that dream. And to be told she felt I would never teach again, it just was like the wind got knocked out of me. But I want to tell you that 6 months after my diagnosis, although I was still receiving treatments for this disease and still on medications and everything, I was teaching again. I've had little breaks in teaching since 2001, but for the most part, I have never quit teaching. Currently, I'm teaching my own children through homeschooling. I'm teaching Sunday school at church and teaching preschool at our homeschool co-op. The other devastating thing which was said to me was from my doctor. He said, "You will likely never have a family or be a mom." Again, this hit like a sucker punch to my gut. My love for children and desire to be a mom didn't look like it was going to be fulfilled. But again, the truth was the doctor thought he knew my future, but he was incorrect. In 2003, 2 years after becoming ill, I got married. And in 2005, my husband Jeff and I adopted our first baby girl. And 2 years later, we adopted our second baby girl. I became a mom despite what the doctor predicted. And I really wanted to share my story, even though I'm not comfortable with this or anything, but I just wanted to share my story because although this disease is very rare, there seem to be more and more children being diagnosed with it. I see mostly children and young mom being diagnosed. Men can be as well, it just doesn't seem to be as common. But it's people being diagnosed that have a lot of life left to live. And you may hear, or you may even feel messages of hopelessness. You may feel them from yourself. There may be experts in your life telling you hopeless scenarios. But the truth is, God is the great physician. His plans for you cannot be stopped. Psalm 118 verse 6 says, "The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" And I just want to share that hope that man may be filling you with messages of doubt. You may be filling yourself with messages of doubt, but the plans of man cannot stop the plans of God. Put your hope and faith in the Lord. aHUS has caused me to realize my need for God, and I am forever grateful to have realized that need. So I just really appreciate you guys listening to my story. I think Michaela wants to share something, and then if you have any questions,
Please feel free to type in questions. We want to answer as many as possible.
okay. Do you want to come over here, Michaela, and
Sure.
let's see.
I know that some people have asked me that, like, what's it like to have a mom that has a type of disease that's rare? I tell them it's not really much different than having just a normal kind of life, you know? I know my life is a little different than most kids because me and my mom have to go down, well, actually my sister and my mom go down and down the road and go get her infusion, which helps keep her from being like really super tired. She is tired sometimes, and it's just part of our life, but she's awesome and we love her anyway. So I'm gonna hand the floor back to my mom. Do you know if there's any questions?
I don't really know how.
Here, I got it. Here,
Okay.
come back.
Okay.
Please ask questions. We want to ask. I want you guys to ask questions, technically.
So Michaela's going to try to figure out if there's questions coming in. If not, thanks for listening anyway.
Okay. No questions yet.
Okay.
People are saying thank you for sharing your story, and you're an inspiration.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Thank you for listening to my story.
yeah. So if you guys have any questions, just ask away, okay? Is there anything else you want to share, Mom?
I don't think so.
Should we ask Abby?
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening. Take care.